Hi, this is Harry from Outcreate. We are a presentation agency that loves working with public company IROs. I am working on some content, right? This content is about what are the 6 things that investors are looking for, especially large investors are looking for when they invest in your company. These are the 6 things. We talk about industry dynamics, sustainable competitive advantage, quality of management team, strategy and long-term goals, how good is your execution track record and your capital allocation strategy. Again, this may not be an exhaustive list, but I believe this is a great place to start. Along with the explanation of these 6 factors, I thought, hey, let me share with you examples of slides so that if you are building your investor deck or thinking of enhancing your investor deck, these could be useful for inspiration. So let's dive in. I have an example of a deck that I want to share with you, and then I might go to some outside sort of references as well in some. So this is our client, Armstrong World Industries. They are a fantastic company. They are the #1 ceilings company in North America. They have a great business model, great group of people. And this deck, I feel like they've done a lot of things well, and I wanted to just focus on those slides. Check out this deck. I might do a sort of a walkthrough of this deck in more detail at some point. It has a really good structure to it. It has strong opening, and then it gets into why invest in AWI. And then the rest of the deck is basically chapters. Reason number 1, why invest? Reason number 2, why invest? The rest of the deck is structured that way. Very easy to remember, easy to follow. I think it's well done. Let's get into each of these factors, and then I want to show you how AWI addressed these factors in their deck. So when it comes to industry dynamics and competitive advantage, the approach that they took was they talk about it at the same time. How good is the industry? How uniquely advantaged they are. They're trying to cover at the same time. So if you go into this part of their deck, right, why invest in AWI? The first point is they believe they are a unique company in an attractive industry. They get into this, right, like why their category. So we talk about industry, but I think it's interesting and very useful to also talk about the category within the industry, the category that you play in. So they feel their category is very attractive, and then they talk about why they win, why they are advantaged. They have a strong, trusted brand. They have a very broad, highly innovative portfolio, and then they are the go-to specified product when it comes to architects and designers. And then a few more points, but I think they do a good job saying, hey, our category is attractive, and then we are uniquely positioned. And then over here, they talk about their sectors. Who are they selling to? They sell ceilings, which are used by the retail sector, the transportation sector, which could be airports and train stations, healthcare, which would be hospitals or medical facilities, offices, and then education. I think what I like about this is we start with the secular trends here, saying, hey, we have some big secular trends going on. So these are some secular trends going on, which is why their product is very attractive. And then they want to talk about their verticals. And for each one of them, they talk about retail, what's the outlook? Transportation, what's the outlook? And I really like this, especially because I remember during the pandemic times, the office vertical was challenged, and I understand even today it is quite challenged. But I would say before, people had this impression that Armstrong is very heavy in the office space. But over here you learn, right, it's only 30% of their business in the office space, which is slightly affected, yes. But then they have some other positive sectors, which overall gives them stability throughout cycles. So I feel like, hey, this is a great example of talking about your industry or end market outlook. And then also they did a good job talking about their competitive advantage. Now, when it comes to competitive advantage, it's not like you just need a slide to talk about it. Hey, it's good to have a slide to talk about it. But competitive advantage can definitely be sprinkled as well as highlighted throughout the deck. For example, here's a slide where they talk about their journey in the last 10 years. One of their competitive advantages, they are very focused, very much in the sealing space. So they spun off some other businesses in 2012. And since then, they have been very focused. And the focus has led to a strong acceleration of their growth. So this is one more place they say, hey, we are unique because we are the only focused, scaled player in this ceilings category. Imagine being an investor, and if you like this category, you would love to invest in a company like this. Throughout the deck, you'll see more examples of them talking about competitive advantage. Let's come back here. So I would say for industry dynamics and competitive advantage, I think AWI has done a fantastic job of talking about those factors. Quality of management team, that's not included in this deck. And I thought, hey, let's look at another source for inspiration when it comes to talking about your management team. And this time I thought we should look beyond the normal places we look for. So I think I also keep an eye on pitch decks, especially pitched by startups. Sometimes they can be useful as inspiration, even for public companies. In this case, this is a fantastic example of how you should be talking about your management team. So in this case, this is a company called Orange. They're in the charging infrastructure space. I came across this slide, which I thought is pretty solid. In this case, they talk about their CEO, their leadership team, and then really provide a lot of good context. So showing pictures of your team, obviously name and their title. It could be a mature public company, yet, the same best practices can apply. Picture, title, and then, connecting the dots, right? Providing context here in terms of like why this person's past experience makes this person a great leader in your company. They've also shown logos of past companies where these guys come from, and they are very relevant to what they bring to the table. So I thought this was really well done. I think even public companies can do something like this, where you show your leaders, talk a little bit about the experience, show logos of past companies which are relevant to this job as well. Awesome. Let's come back to AWI strategy and long-term goals. AWI again has done a good job at talking about their strategy. They are not in a position to share long-term goals at this moment. They plan on doing this in the near future. So it's not in the deck at the moment, but let's cover strategy. We can talk about their execution record and capital allocation as well. So strategy, again, I think it is one of their slides, right? Like they have a customer obsession, a growth strategy. And then if you come to that section, you will see that they've used this combination of a flywheel to talk about their strategy. And they have sort of these three pillars, which is, part of their strategy. They just don't talk about strategy at a high level, they double click into it. So each one of this innovation capabilities, right? They have some really good proof points to talk about, like why their innovation is so effective, what's coming up next in terms of their innovation. Then you have a double click on the second part, and then a double click on their acquisition strategy as well. So it can seem really simple. I would say still strategy is either missing or seems very scattered in many investor decks. The idea is like have a very clear sort of one pager for strategy, and then you should be double clicking at the appropriate levels. So you're articulating to your investors what do you mean by each one of these strategies. All right, let's next talk about their execution track record. Generally, the financial section is a great place to sort of talk about your recent execution performance. They talk about the last 4 years performance across sales, EBITDA, EPS, cash flow. These are definitely the KPIs that their investor audience is looking for. They're able to show strong performance throughout. So I think that's a great way to talk about your track record. Even in the earlier part of the deck, like when they talk about they made some big decisions in the past, which has resulted in accelerated growth. This is also them talking about their track record over here. And then it's throughout the deck. Like even when they say innovation, it's not just saying we have fantastic innovation. They're always sort of proving it with track record, past performance, and not just saying we do great things, but always substantiating with good data. So I think lots of good example of execution track record here. I would say this is a must-have in most decks where you take your top, 3 or 4 KPIs and talk about your track record over the last, 3 to 5 years. Finally, let's talk about capital allocation, as that's an important thing to investors too. Over here, this is how I would say this is a very effective slide. They talk about their priorities in terms of 1, 2, 3. Again, they're not just talking about the priorities, but then also showing, hey, how truly they have been deploying capital aligned with their priorities. And then again, they talk about their proven track record when it comes to disciplined capital allocation. So I would say a lot done in one slide. Talks about priorities, talks about recent, how capital has been deployed, and then speaks to their track records. So yeah, I would say they've done a fantastic job with talking about these factors in detail with proof point to their investor audience. So there you go. These were some examples of slides that can help you articulate the 6 factors that we think investors are looking for. Obviously, every company is unique, so every deck will be unique. But the idea is, let's start with these 6 factors, make sure that your deck covers them, and then, obviously add what's unique about you, what other things you think investors care for when they invest in your company. Thanks. Hope you find this helpful. Take care.